Hello, welcome to Big League Coaching. My name is Bill Lasky. I'll be your host today. In a great class with pitchers and catchers for sure. And this is about catcher signs and communication with pitchers during the game, in game, and after the game. But first of all, let me introduce to you our instructor today. 16 years in Major League Baseball. He was a catcher for many teams. Of course, the 1991 season when the Minnesota Twins won the World Series. Let's welcome in Brian today. How you doing today, Brian?
Pretty good. Hey guys, welcome to the classroom. Looking forward to just sharing some of the knowledge that I've learned over the years and being with you guys. Hopefully I'll help you out some.
Well, Brian Harper, one of the biggest things we do as pitchers and catchers is communication. And today we're going to talk about signs for a catcher with nobody on, with runners on, with different defenses on. So let's start the class. Let's talk about how catchers communicate with pitchers before the game. And let's go with that. Start off with that, Brian.
Well, a lot of times it depends on the level that you're at and the information that you have. Sometimes the lower the level, we don't have as much information on the other team as we'd like to. So sometimes with the lower level guys, the little league and that is, you really want to just communicate with your pitcher on what he wants to try to do and maybe encourage him and help him feel good about his stuff. Sometimes as catchers, I never want to say lie, but sometimes as catchers, we have to exaggerate a little bit to help the pitcher feel a little bit better. How'd I throw in the bullpen? Hey, you were great. Your stuff was good. Your ball was moving, everything, to get the pitcher confident, so with the upper levels, the higher levels, if you have scouting reports, if you've seen this team before, you want to go through the lineup, say the leadoff hitter, hey, this guy really likes the ball in, so let's try to stay away and stay soft and have a plan for each hitter. Like I said, with the more information you have facing that team, the more you can go over a pregame plan. If you don't have a lot of information on the team, then you've got to go with what your pitcher does best. That's always the best thing as a catcher. No matter what the plan is, if you have a pitcher that's a fastball pitcher and you have a hitter that's a good fastball hitter, you're still going with the fastball with your guy. You want to go pitcher first, his stuff. You want to stay with his stuff first and then go deviate from the plan from there. Like I said, there's more information you can get on the other opposing team. Maybe a player, hey, let's stay away from this guy if there's men on base, and just have a kind of a pregame plan and see how it rolls. A lot of times you'll have a plan A and say, hey, if this happens and we roll through the lineup one time, let's go hard early and then soft later, and then all of a sudden your pitcher gets in trouble right away in the first inning. You run out to the mound and say, okay, let's go to plan B and start throwing some off-speed stuff, or so you always have to be adjusting and communicating with your pitcher.
One of the things you just said is the pregame. When you're down in the bullpen, when the starting pitcher is warming up, you go down there and you literally see what's hot and what's not and try to gauge what his best pitch is that day. And that really kind of sets you up on signs once that first inning starts.
Oh, no question. No question. You have to spend time before the game warming up your starter and see what he's got going. One day, as you know, one day the fastball might have a little extra pop on it. One day the breaking ball might be a little bit sharper. So you want to make sure you spend time in the bullpen warming up your pitcher, communicating with him, talking with him. Like I said, encouraging him, pumping him up. Getting him to feel real confident before you go into the game.
So let's go with some simple signs. As you talk about it, we get into the first inning. You know what signs the pitcher wants. You know what numbers you put down. So let's just go with some basic signs and how you would develop that with your pitcher.
Well, first of all, to address the sign thing, what happened with the Houston Astros, everybody knows about the sign stealing, and they obviously went overboard supposedly using video to kind of steal signs. But sign stealing in baseball has been around forever, and a lot of it is the catcher's responsibility to make sure the other team doesn't know his signs when there's runners on second base, hiding the signs when there's nobody on, making sure that the base runner at first base can't see his signs in order to steal second base. And there's so much. I see so many young catchers where I could sit at coaching third base and see every sign that they get. So there's so many things that young catchers do wrong when they give signs. First of all, with nobody on, it's real simple. You're using your glove to block the third base coach. So you're here. This is going to go down to block the third base coach. You got to go deep, right up against your cup, and give your sign.
Back up just a little, Brian. Back up just a tad. There you go. Perfect.
So you want to use your glove to block the third base coach. See how I'm blocking my third base coach with my glove? Boom. I give my sign. Go from there. Okay. Now, different signs. You know, if you have a pitcher that has a two-seamer and a four-seamer, you can go with the four-seamer. Can be just the regular one. If you want to know and you need to know that he's going to throw a two-seamer, maybe you do a little bit of a wiggle. You know, obviously the two is usually the curveball. Three, you want to give with these three fingers, because if you give the three like this, it ends up looking like a two sometimes. So you want to go 1, 2, 3, and your changeup usually is the wiggle. You know, because the four fingers are a little bit hard to see sometimes for the pitcher, so you want to wiggle your changeup. But like I said, the key when there's nobody on is to use your glove to block it from the third base coach, like that, so he can't see. Then I go there, I go there, I go there. Now, runner on first base. The good base runners will peek in occasionally to try to see if they can pick up a sign. Maybe when you do it, you wiggle and throw a changeup, or you put down a curveball on, they'll steal on that. They'll peek in. So when you have a runner at first base, you want to not only block the third base coach with your glove, but you want to tuck your right knee in a little bit to try to avoid him from seeing your sign. So you're going to give it a little bit off-centered. Can you see that well? You're going to give it a little bit off-centered. So you block the base runner at first base. Now, in the game, if you notice that you put a curveball down, boom, they go, almost always that means they're looking at your signs and they're seeing it. And every time maybe you call a breaking ball, they're gonna run. One of the things you can do is you can talk to your pitcher, communicate, say, look, they're peeking in when I'm giving signs at first base. So right when I put my finger down, I want you to pick over, because he's going to be looking at me. Sometimes you can get a pick off that way, and that's one of the ways that you can shut down guys peeking in and looking at your signs. But
let's go back to your signs. Let's go back to your number 1, your wiggle for a sinker, 2 curveball, 3 slider, 4 changeup. Is it really important as a catcher also to keep your knees locked a little closer? I know you have your glove in front, but you don't want the legs of a catcher too far apart either. That's another way that people could steal your sign.
Right. What I see with a lot of the young guys is they'll just sit there like this and they'll go like this. And then you see it from anywhere, you know, you go like that, because they'll have their signs way out here. And it's as a coach, many times at third base, I'll just sit there and, hey, if I yell your number, it's a fastball. If I yell your name, it's a breaking ball. You know, I'll say, hey, Bill. All of a sudden, fastball comes. I'll ask you, get a good hit, you know, and breaking ball comes, you know, because the catchers are just giving you their signs. They're just going like this. You got to tuck it way back and go, like I said, go right up against your cup and get the sign so nobody can see it. And you don't want it down. You want it right up against your cup so nobody can see it, because that's part of the catcher's responsibility, is to hide the pitches from the other team. And like I said, especially on first base, because the good base runners will peek in. I know in the big leagues many times, smart base runners like Paul Molitor and these guys that could sneak steal bases would always be looking in, and I'm looking at them and they're looking at me. We're trying to hide the signs from each other and everything, you know, so that's one of those things.
It's so important too when you hide against the runners. Runners are always trying to take advantage of any type of pitch, especially when you throw breaking balls, because they can get a couple steps on it. Tell us a little bit about moves to first base that you can tell pitchers to throw over, and what are some simple signs you can teach? Usually,
most of the catchers will use the pinky over like that will be like kind of the throw over. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Pinky over like that will be the throw over, and you can have different signs. Sometimes in the big leagues, obviously the coaches call the pickoffs and the throwovers with all that. A lot of people get confused thinking that when the catcher's looking in the dugout, the big league manager is calling pitches, which doesn't happen. The catcher and the pitcher call the game. The manager is calling throwovers, pitch outs. You know, they'll have a certain amount of signs that he'll throw over. Like a lot of times, you know, nose to the rider will be pick off. So you just, you know, you'll give the pitcher a boom, little sign like that. Sometimes we'll have a slide step sign. You know, it might be a flash one. You know, will be for a slide step for the pitcher to get quicker to the plate, give you a chance to throw the runner out. So those are things that you always have to communicate with your pitcher to work that out. Because, hey, if I give you the pinky, I want you to pick over. You know, like I said earlier on, if you suspect that they're peeking in to try to get your signs, it's a great time right when you put your finger down, boom, for the pitcher to take over, because they're looking in at the catcher. Sometimes you can get an out, an easy out that way.
One of the things that pitchers and catchers always talk about are pitch outs. Pitch outs
Right.
are so important. When you possibly could see a runner ready to go and he's taking a little larger lead, the catcher usually sees it. Sometimes the first baseman verbally says your number. Tell us a little bit about the pitch out and what a catcher has to do to prepare to make that throw.
Okay, excuse me. A lot of times the pitch outs are called by most of the coaches. The catcher has to speak with his coach or manager and say, hey, am I allowed to call a pitch out on my own? Some coaches will say, yeah, if you get a feel that he's going, go for it. If some coaches will say, no, I'll call the pitch outs. If I want to pitch out, I'll call it. But either way, usually the most recognizable sign for a pitch out is the fist. I'll just go down and give the fist. And that's one of the things that you got to make sure you hide from the base runner with your right knee. You know, so, and what you want to do on the pitch out is you want to move, you want to get, obviously give the guy, pitcher your sign, boom, I give the fist, he shakes, you go up. Right-handed hitter, I want to go out to give a big target for the pitcher to throw you a ball chest high so that I can just come and be real aggressive and throw the ball to second base. Obviously, with the left-handed hitter, I'm going to go this way. Give the pitcher your chest, a good target, so that I can come up and throw. So really, a lot of times the signs are just universal to that team, but for the most part in baseball, they're very similar. You know, another big part, and there's a major part of sign stealing by other teams, and we all did it, is when runners are on second base. You've got to have a series of signs that are confusing enough to have the runner not be able to pick them up, but also easy enough for your pitcher to understand them. If, for example, if you're at the higher levels and you go first or second sign, they're going to have your signs real easy. And it's very easy to relay signs from second base to the batter. You know, I might be the base runner and I see the sign, I see a fastball, I just look to my right first, and that's a sign for a fastball. If I look to my left, that's an off-speed pitch. And so part of the catcher's job is to make sure those signs don't get picked up, and also keep an eye on the runner at second base. Like we mentioned earlier, the Houston situation where they use video and everything, that was totally not baseball and not right. I mean, but stealing signs from the catcher and relaying them to the hitters, part of the game, and it's our fault, mine and yours, the pitcher and the catcher's fault if they pick those up. We got to be changing signs. So there's a lot of examples I could go through with, like, you know, different types of signs with men on second base and different sets of signs that are real helpful, and I can do that. I don't know if there's certain ones you like.
Well, let's go with the runner on second base. Most of the time, it's either first sign or last sign they give. Sometimes they do pumps. Sometimes they count. There's so many different aspects of the game. But let's just go high school level. Let's talk about what catchers can do to eliminate that runner stealing a sign, and what are some basic things you could teach us today?
Well, one of the signs that's really easy and not so complicated, but yet you can have some variations of it, is first sign after two. That I caught many pitchers that would use first sign after two. So you can hide the sign. Say you want to go fastball, you can go 2, 1, 3, 1. All of a sudden you have a fastball. Or if you want to throw another wrinkle on it, you can go 3, 3, 2, 1, 3. You know, and so you can always mix your signs up with the runner on second base, and that's a simple one. If you use that in the big leagues, they pick that up. You know, but for high school,
I think one of the keys you just said is a simple sign, whatever number comes after 2. So as a pitcher, I'm just waiting until I see that number 2, and I know the signs right after is what you want me to throw. What if I shake off? What if I don't want that pitch? Do you go right back to that same number 2 and use another pitch?
You can go that, or you can go, hey, I shake off, it will be first sign. So in other words, he didn't want to throw a fastball, so then I go 3, 2, 1, boom. He wants a slider, and I go that. So a lot of times it's shake off, first sign. After that, and like I said, at the higher levels, that would be a little shaky to use because the base runners are pretty smart and they're aware of the different variations of signs. There's a couple that I really like that I used a lot, and they're not real difficult. One's the pumps. The pumps roll over at 5. So in other words, where the only number that really matters is the number you start with. So you can go 3. Now, whatever you do after that, you're just counting. 4, 5, 1. 1 and 5 would be fastballs, 2 is a curveball, 3 is a slider, 4. So you just count the pump. So if I started 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be a changeup. So that's a good one. That's a little bit more advanced. Is the pump sign? I don't know. Did you ever use that?
Yeah, we did. And it's very easy to do. All you're doing is counting how many numbers you put down, and that's really simple to do. I like that variation too. I also like the number, like what we just did about after the number 2, because literally you can put 3, 4 signs down and I'm not doing anything until I see the number 2. And
right.
As a pitcher, that's my point of reference. Now, one other thing we need to talk about is direction of where the pitch is. Say fastball, you go to your knee to talk about inside or outside. Talk about some of those signs that you can give me as a pitcher after you put the sign down of where the location of that pitch is supposed to be at.
Well, there's a couple ways. A lot of times you can just kind of angle the one to the side that you want. So you go like that, sort of fastball and fastball away. Sometimes pitchers that throw 2-seamers and 4-seamers, a lot of times you'll stay 2-seam on the his right side, his arm side, and 4-seam on the glove side. And so you always kind of work that out. Now, sometimes you might want to go 4-seam up, so you might have a sign that you just do a little bit up. You have to kind of watch out for that with runners in a second, because it's hard to mix that up a little bit with this hand. Sometimes you can use the knees, the touches. You can go first touch, is the side we're on, whatever. Like you gotta be creative with this, though. You gotta be creative, and you gotta watch the runners at second base. A couple other ones that I like before we kind of change the subject is one that I used a lot in Minnesota was called ABE, ahead, behind, even. When you're ahead in the count, it's the first sign. When you're behind in the count, it's the second sign. When you're even in the count, it's the third sign. And so it changes from pitch to pitch. That was a real good one, and it's not real hard to do, because ABE, ahead, behind, even. It's 1 and 1. It's the third sign. It's 0 and 1. It's the first sign. It's 1 and 0. It's the second time. So that's an easy one. Another one that, like you said, first sign after 2. That's what Jack Morris used all the time. So that's what we used. I used to tell him that, hey, I think they're getting onto your signs a little bit, but he was like, I don't care if I throw a good pitch, they won't hit it. So
now, during the process of a game, things happen. Runners pick up signs. Is that a communication you talk to the pitchers as well as the second baseman and shortstops, who really are watching the signs and making movements of which way the ball is going? Is this communication during the game, or does this come sometimes when you go to the mound and the shortstop says, hey, the runner's getting our signs here, let's mix it up?
Yes, 100%. You got to keep an eye on it. Your shortstop's got to keep an eye on it. Your middle infielders, and then if you notice something going on where they're on everything, and you feel like the runner second's really leaning one way or moving one way, stepping to his right all the time on the fastball, stepping to his left on the breaking ball, those type of things, or moving his head, you got to go out there, bring your shortstop and say, hey, we got to change the signs up like that. Sometimes just even going out there will buy you a couple pitches. I know I had a couple pitches pitchers that I caught that really struggled with signs. So they wanted to go real easy, first sign or second sign. So what I did was I kind of developed this thing. I said, okay, if you're going to go with a real simple sign, like say you have a pitcher, you know how it is. Some pitchers get hyped up in the moment and they don't want to be thinking about pumps and rollovers and all that. They just want to throw the ball. So what I did was I developed a little bit of a kind of a fake sign. I'd go out in front of the plate and I go, hey, Bill. And I look at the shortstop and I'd give some signs like that, and they meant absolutely nothing. And then the pitcher would nod his head like, okay, like we just changed up the signs, and then we'd go back to the same sign, and it would buy you 2 or 3 pitches to for the pitcher, because some pitchers do not like using a complicated science system. It's just
Well, it's true, and it's true. Some pitchers, when they get out there, they just want to throw the ball. They don't want to complicate themselves even more. One of the things you just said that I loved catchers doing was they did the fake no and just made the pitcher say no. Tell me a little of the advantage when a catcher does that for the pitcher.
Well, yeah, you're always, as a hitter, you're always thinking, as a pitcher, you're always thinking. It's kind of funny because you talk to a lot of people about baseball and they say, there's so much downtime in baseball. And I go, look, there is not downtime at all. The pitcher's on the mound trying to figure out what the hitter's thinking. The catcher's on the mound, or behind the plate, looking at the pitcher thinking, okay, what can he throw to get this hitter out? What's the hitter looking for? Everybody's mind is turning and spinning. It's not like we're just out there going, I had one dad say, they sit there and they make adjustments on their jock and they, just sit there and it's just kind of boring. Why don't they just pitch the ball? I go, no. There is game reports, scouting reports, what this guy doesn't hit, how can I get him out? Everything's flowing through the pitcher's mind. The catcher's trying to outsmart the hitter. You go back and forth, and so it's really a game of chess. So part of that, like you said, say you have full count, and you throw a fastball, boom, the guy's right on and he fouls it off. You throw another fastball, boom, he's right on and he fouls it off. Now, if I look at the pitcher, I call a I do the shake, tell him to shake, and the pitcher shakes. All of a sudden, as a hitter, I'm thinking, wait a second, is he going to throw a breaking ball here? He might throw a breaking ball. Then boom, I go back to the fastball because I don't have confidence the pitcher's going to throw a breaking ball for a strike. So I just play with the hitter's head a little bit by having the pitcher shake. Hey, shake, and the pitcher shakes. And then we go back to the fastball, boom, strike three. We blew it by him because he thought, hey, they're changing pitches up on me. So that's all part of the mind game and part of the catching. Another thing a catcher's got to be real good at is pitch recollection. He's got to remember how he got this guy out. He's got to remember how they attacked this hitter. He's got to remember all these things. A catcher's mind should be going all the time, trying to get hitters out, trying to get the pitcher through, 4 or 5, the smaller ball, 4 or 5 innings, and pro ball or college ball, 6, 7, get him into the 6th, 7th inning by being creative and mixing up your patterns. One of the worst things a catcher can do is get into patterns. Hey, every time we get 1 ball, no strikes, we throw a slider. Or every time because hitters are watching that. At least I know I did. I watched to see if pitchers would get into patterns. And so calling a game, and a lot of the young players have their coaches are hoping they're calling the game, So what I suggest for young catchers, think along with the coach, before you really don't have an option. If he's calling the game, you got to put down what he says, but think along with him so that it can teach you to call a game when you're older and you get some freedom or whatever. I've seen many college catchers that come into pro ball that have never called a game. They say, I've never called a game. What do I do? Because the coach always called it. So I would suggest you younger catchers that have your coaches calling games, really think like, okay, right here, I'd call a slider, or I'd call a breaking ball here. Just really think along with the coach to train your mind to be able to call a game. So if you do get the opportunity to play pro ball, you can eventually call your game, or how to do that. I try to let my catchers and pitchers call their own games just for that, to learn the game and to understand the game.
It is so important for the pitcher and catcher, if the coach is calling a game, to understand his theories and why is he doing that. And sometimes you question him. There's no reason why that catcher and pitcher can't go to the coach after the game or during the game and say, hey, I got a pretty good sinker today. I want to use it a little bit more. And is that the catcher's communication with the coach that's calling that, or should the pitcher do that?
I think it's better if the catcher does it, just because I think, you can go up to the coach and say, hey, he's got a really good sinker today. I think we need to use that a little bit more than the 4-seamer. His ball's really moving. I think that with the catcher, and then, communicating with your pitcher. You always should, in the dugout, the catcher should always sit right next to the pitcher. Obviously if you're hitting and it's your turn to hit, you do your thing hitting, but you should always kind of be by him just so you can talk over things like, hey, maybe we should have went slider on that last pitch, or hey, next inning the leadoff hitter hit my fastball pretty good. Do we want to, throw one inside a little bit, get him out the plate, or do we want to throw something soft away? Just so you're always, communicating with your pitcher. Some pitchers you know, and that's another part of catching is you've got to know your pitcher. You got to know his makeup. Some pitchers, i.e. Jack Morris, you did not want to talk to him during the game. He was mad and angry, and he wanted to get hitters out, so you just kind of patted him on the leg and say, "Let's go get him, big fella." You know, I mean, he was a great guy, but I mean, when he pitched kind of.
And I tell you that's exactly, you know, there was times where I wanted my catcher to tell me if my slider was sharp or was it flat. And once he told me to make that adjustment, either my pitching coach came down or in high school, your head coach came down if he wasn't coaching third to tell you to get on top of the ball a little bit more. But I love that communication when a catcher comes in and says, hey, you're just missing the outside corner, move it in a little bit. That communication with a catcher is so important. And I love the aspect of you talking about going on that bench in between innings and saying, this was good, this is what we need to do. And one of the points I want to bring up is just what you said about communication. Let's go to the next part of it and communicating with the pitcher. These are so important. And let's go all the way back into the pregame aspect of the bullpen and how you're going to talk to them as they're warming up. Go back that far.
Well, and partly, you know, part of the catcher's job is kind of be a little bit of a psychologist. You know, you got to really know your pitchers. You got to know what pitchers are confident. You got to know what pitchers are a little bit insecure about their stuff. You got to know, you know, maybe the confident guy, you challenge him a little bit. Hey, come on, you're missing the corners. This concentrate and bear down a little bit. Maybe the pitcher that's a little bit more insecure. And I've caught some Hall of Fame closers that were insecure. You know, that really didn't think their stuff was that good, but yet they, you know, so you go out there and say, oh, man, you're throwing good right now. Your fastball's hopping, you know, and then all of a sudden you see him light up, you know. So you part of it is getting to know your pitcher, making sure that, like I said, the pitcher that's a little unsure of his stuff, you're going to build him up. You're going to build him up. Say, hey, you got it going today. You got some good stuff going. And sometimes it takes going out to the mound. You know, we'll get into that a little bit later. But the pregame stuff, you know your pitcher and know the guy that, you know, guy's a little, like I said, confident or maybe a little overconfident. You got to challenge him and get on him a little bit and say, I was never a, you know, like yell at the pitcher guy, but you know, you can challenge somebody without yelling and say, hey, come on, bear down here. You're better than this. You know, you got too good of stuff to be getting hit like this. Come on, you need to concentrate. You need to bear down and give me some better pitches here. And so that's all part of the getting to know your pitcher.
As you talk about talking to your pitchers in the pregame, that is a lot of confidence building for a pitcher too, is when you're on that same wavelength as a catcher, starting a game all the way into pregame. So now as we get through pregame, now it's the first inning. Before you even go out there, do you have a little conversation before that when the game's ready to start, before you see that pitcher going out there, maybe something, just a little directness, a little confidence booster?
A lot of times it's, you know, you're going out there, you're kind of hyped up, you know. I mean, you know, for me, I'd be, hey, let's have some fun out there today. You know, let's enjoy the game. You know, kind of almost get them to relax, because a lot of times the pitcher is going to be real hyped up right at the start of the game. He's got it going. He's, you know, he's warmed up. He's got a good sweat going. He's going to be fired up. So a lot of times I'll try to I would try to calm the pitcher down right before, because the last thing you wanted to do is start overthrowing and, you know, walking. Let's get that first hitter out, right? Come on, let's concentrate and get that first hitter out. You know, so that again is knowing your pitcher. You know, a catcher's got to know his pitching staff, who's confident, who's a little bit insecure, who can do what with their pitches. Another thing about game calling, game on the line, you know, you put down, you're calling, say you and the pitcher are calling the game. You put down a pitch he doesn't want to throw. And you're going, I know we can get this guy with a slider. Boom, boom, boom. We can get this guy with a slider. He doesn't want to throw it. Okay. With the game on the line, big situation, catcher should always run out and say, look, I think we can get this guy with a slider. And pitcher says, no, I want to throw a fastball in. I got it. Catcher always goes with what the pitcher wants to throw. That's my rule. Because
one of my first big league pitching coaches was Bill Fisher. And when we get into these pitcher-catchers meetings, he would always say, don't ever let the catcher tell you what to throw, because the next day, the winning pitcher is your name or the losing pitcher is your name, not the catcher's name. Now, again, I agree.
Exactly.
I agree with some of that, but I also agree my catcher's understanding how my pitch is being thrown. And I really like the communication part of a catcher in between innings or during the game. because emotion takes over so much in the pitcher. Tell me how you control emotion from a pitcher, especially like if the umpire's missing pitches off the corner, you see that pitcher getting really upset. Tell me how you handle that.
Well, I have a couple like general rules. If you see a pitcher show some emotion, some negative emotion where umpire missed a call or shortstop makes an error and you see the pitcher go, oh, boom, I sprint right out to the mound. Sprint right out to the mound and say, look, umpire missed that one. Don't let this affect your next pitch. You know, you put I'll always put my hand on the pitcher's shoulder or whatever, because there's a calming with that. When the catcher goes out there and puts his hand on the pitcher's shoulder and say, hey, he missed that. Don't let this next pitch be guided by that. Throw another good pitch, get him going. Or, like I said, if the shortstop makes an error and you see that, run out there, hey, pick your teammate up. Come on, let's pick your teammate up. Get another ground ball. He'll make the play. And try to encourage him to get his mind off of what just happened, because we've all seen it happen. An error, a bad call by the umpire. It just snowballs, and instead of giving up one run, all of a sudden 4 runs are in because the pitcher got emotional. So as a catcher, you've got to see that. You've got to notice that, and you got to get out there. And that's one of the things I dislike about the new rule in pro ball, where they eliminate mound visits. That limits a lot of times the catchers going out there. And I think there's some big times where a catcher goes out there and can calm a pitcher down and save, and make an inning a 1-run inning rather than a 3 or 4 run inning, just by getting him to refocus and not worry about the error that just happened, or not worry about the bad call that the umpire made or whatever. And it's a tough thing to do.
I want to review exactly what you just talked about. When a catcher comes out and talks to the pitcher, tell me some of the nice little words of encouragement that you've told many pitchers when they're struggling to get their mind off the game. Bob Brenly used to come out and tell me a joke, or he'd tell me about the guy in the front row eating a hot dog. I mean, he tried to get my thoughts back on the game to get that pitcher off the edge of being so nervous. Tell me some of the things you used to do.
Well, sometimes you go, like I said, you go out there and you try to lighten the moment up. You go out there and say, can you believe we're playing baseball right now and they're actually paying us money to do this? This is unbelievable, huh? Or, just to kind of get their mind. Now with kids, I'll be saying, look at this. Saturday afternoon, we're playing baseball at the park. It'd be better. Would you relax and just have some fun rather than putting all the stress on yourself? We're playing baseball. So I try to lighten it up a little bit. Or, like I said, if there's a pitcher that you need to shake up a little bit, say, come on, bear down. You're better than this. This guy can't hit you. Come on, bear down. Throw the ball where I need it. So you challenge the pitcher, but a lot of times when you see a pitcher struggling with a little stress, or he's getting worried, or he like you said, like Bob Brennan, you come out and say a joke, or you loosen them up and say, hey, we're playing baseball here. This is unbelievable. Let's have some fun with it. Make a pitch. Let's get out of the inning, and we'll get a couple runs next inning. Whatever it is, just to encourage them.
The things that happen during a game, in-game communication, in-game no-one hitters. Is there something that you could tell me from a catcher to a pitcher that you see during a game that really enlightens that pitcher up to give him thoughts on the next time around? Say a guy hits a double and he comes in all upset and he's all grumpy and angry over one hit. And as a catcher, you come around to him and say, hey, next time we're going to do this. I just kind of want to know your communication style to the guys that the pitcher can't get out. And those are the ones that frustrate a pitcher more than anything.
Yeah, usually it's all about location. Usually the guy hit a double because you were going fastball away, and all of a sudden, boom, it was down the middle of the plate, and he hits a double. So I would use that as like say, hey, it wasn't the pitch. It was where you put it. It was right down the middle. If you hit the corner on that, he rolls over and hits the ground ball to shortstop. So this next time, let's get on the corner and make a good pitch. Because usually, good at bats or bad at bats are defined by swinging at a bad pitch or not swinging at a bad pitch. Pitcher, and so vice versa. As a pitcher and a catcher, a good out is usually defined by the location of the pitch. Hey, I got the, I just played a game just the other day. My little lefty, man, he got the ball down, he got out, he got the ball up. Whack! There was a line drive somewhere. It wasn't the pitch. It wasn't the pitch itself, it was the location of it. So a lot of times I'll tell the pitcher, hey, look, he's hitting you because you're not hitting your spots. Hit your spots and we'll get him out.
So one of the things that I used to always watch my catcher do is when a pitcher's struggling and the guy in the bullpen's warming up and you get that catcher to come out and you know he's stalling time. What do you tell pitchers at that time? Because you know the manager says, go out there and stall some time, Brian. I got to get this guy warmed up. Tell me your thought pattern and what happens when that happens.
That's the worst trip you can make, because you know it, he knows it, you don't know what to say. And so a lot of times I go, you know why I'm out here. So let's just relax. You know, if you get to throw another pitch, make sure it's a good one, right? If not, and then you walk back and then the manager walks out and he's gone. You know, so you can't really hide that from a pitcher.
Yeah, it's the psychology of the game, and pitchers know it just as well as catchers.
Yeah.
Let's go to the final stage of what we're talking today on catcher signs, and we're going to talk about bunt signs, different signs that you put on when you stand up and you're putting signs on for the infield as well as the pitcher to know. So go through some common things that happen during a game where you, as the catcher, is the captain of the game and you're putting signs on so everybody understands what's going on.
The biggest thing that I see with the young catchers is they don't give enough of the signs. Like, say you're doing first and third defense, and throwing through is the mask, you know, and throwing, the cut play or the two play where the shortstop comes up is the chest, and throwing the third is this. Well, I'll see the manager puts on play one, and they'll go like this, like that. Well, as a coach, I know exactly what they're doing. So what you need to do as a catcher is be slow, deliberate, and use a lot of signs. So that you put a little confusion into the other team, to where it's not just like 3 signs. Use 5 or 6 signs, whether it's the first and third, or whether it's the bunt play. A lot of times the third baseman will give the bunt plays. A lot of times the catcher will. It's the same thing. You've got to, just like when you're catching with runners on second base, you got to vary things up to help the other team not pick up your signs. Well, same thing with the first and third signs or the bunt signs. You've got to use some imagination and take your time. Hey, and make sure you get everybody's attention. The catcher, I'm not a big rah-rah guy, but a catcher needs to be a leader. He needs to be vocal. He needs to make sure the pitcher's getting over to first base on a left-handed hitter on a ground ball. Hey, get over on a ground ball. Hey, make sure you know who you have at second base. So a lot of the signs are just kind of verbal signs. For me, now, like I said, when you're giving the signs out to the whole team, make sure that you have everybody's eyes on you, and you use a variation of signs. So if I'm going to throw through and it's a mask, I'm going to go mask, glove, shoulder, chest, leg, glove, glove, back to the mask, and to give some kind of variation. A lot of times the signs can be verbal with your infielders. You should always have maybe a little bit of a sign for a back pick at first base, and pick up some dirt, lick your fingers at first base and tips his hat. There's so many variations of things that catchers can do with their infielders. What I would do is sometimes when you say you already went out to the mound and now you can't go out to the mound anymore to visit your pitcher at that inning or whatever through the second trip. So a lot of times I would use just kind of verbal signs, or just visual signs to the pitcher. I'd sit there, I'd go like this, just calm down. I got you. Just like that, just to kind of calm him down, to take a deep breath right here, because I can't go back out and talk to him. So I gotta get him to calm down a little bit, or come on, let's go. Give me a good one here. That's the guy that you want to fire up. So those are some of them. But the biggest thing, what you mentioned, is the signs that we give to our infielders. Give multiple signs. Don't just do like that, because as a coach, I know exactly what they're doing. But if he starts mixing it up, and doing a lot of different things, it's a little bit more difficult to pick up.
And also, as a pitcher, you always have the third baseman comes in and he always puts his hand over his mouth and kind of tells him the direction of a bunt play. Are you doing those bunt plays to show the infielders what the manager wants to do? If it's first and second, we're trying to get the force play at third so the pitcher knows to cover the third baseline. Are these mostly hand signs, or are they verbal signs?
Hand signs, but most teams will go over and tell the pitcher what plays on, because sometimes we know that the pitcher will forget what the signs were. So they'll put play one on, usually first or second bunt plays, if you have play one, that's just getting out. You just want it out. You want to avoid a big inning. And so, you know, the third baseman and or the catcher will go up and say, hey, we're playing one on, let's just get it out. And usually that the pitcher breaks to the third base line, and we just want to get it out. Now, if we put the wheel play on or the crash, we want that out at third. The game's on the line, and everybody knows that. But we usually remind the pitcher with a verbal just in case he forgot the signs. And that brings me to another point on the first and third defense. Pitchers need to know those signs. They need to know what the what the coach wants the catcher to do. For example, you have first and third, and this is the biggest thing that happens in the amateur sports. First and third, they go pretty much every play. They're running on first and third. So the pitcher needs to know those signs. Like, for example, if I put on play one, I want my catcher to throw that runner out at second base. Pitcher needs to know that because he needs to hold him on and keep him close and give the catcher a shot to throw him out. Now, if I'm putting on play three, which is the pump fake, I don't care if that guy steals. Pitcher needs to know that, hey, don't even pay attention to the runner at first base. We don't care about him. If he steals, we're going to let him go. I want you to get the hitter out. You know, so his whole focus is different on throwing through or the pump fake. Throwing through, he needs to give the catcher a chance to throw the runner out. On the pump fake, play three, don't even worry about that guy. Don't even look at him. Just concentrate on getting the hitter out because the manager or the coach is saying, we don't care if he steals. We just want you to get the hitter out. So pitchers need to pay attention to those. A lot of times they don't. A lot of times it's like, I don't need to know first and third defense. No, you do need to know. But on the bunt plays, like I said, on the bunt plays, usually we go talk to them.
I agree with you. I think the pitcher needs to know what's going on behind him, who's covering what bags. The catcher is the captain on the field. I've always respected catchers because everything's in front of them. If the pitcher would just have more communication with that catcher, and that's why I say the pitcher-catcher communication has to start from the pregame to the last out of the game, and then after the game. So I want to talk a couple more minutes about after the game. What can you tell me as a catcher? The game is over, guy threw a good game, or the guy struggled. What do you do as a catcher to kind of build that confidence back up?
Well, you go over the game and you say, you know, that one situation where we threw that fastball in, thinking back, maybe we should have went away, you know, because you should be on the same page with the pitcher. If he shakes you off, I didn't have a real big problem with the pitcher shaking me off because I wanted him to be confident with the pitch that he was throwing. Now, sometimes you get such a good relationship with some pitchers and they trust you. Like I had a pitcher in Minnesota, Kevin Tapani, that I caught for 5 years, and we agreed on every pitch. I mean, we just had a relationship that worked. But when a pitcher shakes you off, and then say he shakes off to a slider, and boom, the guy hits a home run, and you know, in a big situation, I'm not going to go up to him and say, man, you should have thrown a fastball. I told you should have thrown. You know, what good is that going to do? You know what I mean? So you just talk about it. Say, yeah, I kind of wanted the fastball in there, but you know, I understand why you wanted to throw the slider. We just got it up a little bit, you know.
I tell you what, it's so good when you have a pitcher-catcher combination where you could just think the same way and everything just flows during the game, the rhythm of a game. And the last thing I want to talk about before we recap is the rhythm of a game. How do you slow a pitcher down if he's so excited where he gets the ball and goes? How, as a catcher, can you slow him down a little bit to relax and kind of get him pitch to pitch instead of getting the ball thrown? Because sometimes catchers love that, but other catchers like that little time between pitches.
Right, there it goes to both ways, because the last thing you want is your pitcher taking 25 seconds between pitches and having everybody flat-footed on defense. So a lot of times you got to speed them up a little bit. Hey, let's go, come on, get the ball, throw. The guy that's working too fast and he's all over the place, I'm in control of that. I can sit there and maybe, you know, say something to the umpire a little bit, maybe, you know, stay on one knee a little bit longer, you know, 3 or 4 seconds longer just to get him to relax. Or just, like I said, I used a lot of hands of, hey, slow it down, big guy. We got time here, you know. I like the pitchers that want to work fast. Fast are better than the ones that are taking 25, 30 seconds between pitches. And you know, so I'm always going, hey, let's go. Come on, speed the game up a little bit. You know, so there's both sides of that.
Yeah, great class today, Brian. Let's recap on some of the things we talked about. Let's recap about your whole class. Tell me some points about each one of the characteristics that you taught today.
Remember, given signs as a catcher, it's your job to hide it from the coach and from the base runners. I got to use my glove and my right knee. My right knee to hide it from the base runner, my glove to hide it from the coach. Giving my signs back up against my cup, not down low where everybody can see it, but hide. Runners on second base, I need to have a set of signs that is easy enough for the pitcher to get, but complicated enough for the runner on second not to be able to relay the signs to the batters, which is part of baseball. That's part of baseball. And it's our job as catcher pitcher to not let them steal our signs. It's our fault. I work on different signs, the pumps, ABE for sign after two. You know, there's a whole bunch of other ones. You know, and that's part of the game. The catcher and the pitcher need to always be communicating in game, in the dugout, on the mound. You know, the catcher's got to be a little bit of a psychologist and know what pitcher needs to get challenged and what pitcher needs to have a little confidence installed in them. And, you know, so you got to kind of know your pitcher. Talk in between innings. Hey, you know, that pitcher's working good. You know, if you're, like you said, if your coach is calling the game, talk to the coach. Hey, his sinker's really working today. I think we need to use it a little bit more. You know, all those things. But the communication and the relationship building between the pitcher and the catcher is huge. It's got to happen.
Brian, thank you again for a great class. We really appreciate it. All you people that have watched the class, from kids to coaches, just an extraordinary way of communication through a catcher. We encourage you to see more of the classes that Big League Coaching puts out. And Brian, once again, thank you for joining me today on some great catching communication drills and some of the communication that you gave us today. Thank you again, Brian, and thank you, Big League Coaching, for bringing this on to everybody watching.
Thanks, Bill.